I'm holding an anamorphic painting. That means if you look at it straight on, it appears distorted. It's stretched out and it's shorter on the left than on the right. But if you close one eye and look at it from just the right perspective, you see a still life. In this case, some of the ingredients that you would use to make pasta sauce. I stole this idea from Hans Holbein the Younger. His painting, The Ambassadors, from 1533, looks like an ordinary painting of two people, except that in the foreground there's a smear of paint. And if you view that smear of paint from just the right angle, it turns into a skull. This painting has been dried for a few months. I varnished it a couple days ago. The varnish is dry. And now the last step is to frame it. I could go with a rectangular frame, but I think it would be more interesting to build a special trapezoidal frame that matches the anamorphic perspective. I start by measuring the outer dimensions of the canvas. The frame is going to be in two parts. There's going to be a rectangular piece that goes around the edge of the canvas, and then there will be the ornamental part made out of trim that overlaps with the picture. Here you can see me cutting 1x2 into 4 pieces that are going to make up the rectangular part of the frame. I don't have a miter saw, so I'm using a miter box instead. That'll let me make nice 45-degree cuts. And there's the last piece. I hold up the pieces of 1x2 next to the canvas to make sure they're the right length. This is when I realized I was supposed to make the short end of the 45-degree cuts match the dimensions of the canvas, but I accidentally matched them to the long edge by mistake. Fortunately, there's an easy fix. All I have to do is add these 4 little pieces, and then I get a beveled corner instead of a 90-degree corner. I assemble these pieces with wood glue, and then I use some painter's tape to hold everything together while it dries. I also add a few staples with the same staple gun that I use for stretching canvas. Now I'm checking that it fits the canvas. It's pretty snug, but if I bang it into place, it works just fine. Here's some geometry that I use to figure out how to cut the 4 pieces of trim that make up the front of the frame. I begin with the lengths of the trapezoid and figure out the angle of each corner. Next, I decide how much the frame should overlap with the painting, about 1/4 inch. And based on that margin and on the angles, I work out the inner length of each piece of trim. After that, I combine the width of the trim with those angles to get the outer lengths. What I end up with is the length of the inner side of each piece of trim, plus the 2 extra lengths for the outer side. Here's what that looks like when I measure it on the wood. There's the length of the inner side, plus the 2 extra lengths for the outer side. After cutting those with a handsaw, I check them against the painting. It's not quite right, so I trim a little bit off of this piece, and after that they line up nicely. Once again, I use wood glue on the joints and tape them into place while the glue dries. And again, I add a few staples just to be on the safe side. Okay, here's what it's going to look like when it's framed up. I get the trim into a position that I like, and then I mark that with a pencil. Then I screw the 1x2 into the trim, and now the frame is assembled and ready to stain. After taking the canvas out of the frame, I give it a good sanding, first with a coarse grit and then with a finer grit sandpaper. And since this is a softwood, it's pine, I need to apply a wood conditioner before I put the stain on, otherwise the stain will come out splotchy. So here I am putting on the wood conditioner. The idea is to saturate the wood and then wipe off the excess with a rag. Half an hour later, it's ready for the first coat of stain, and there it's the same idea. Apply it generously and then wipe off the excess. So here's the frame. After the wood conditioner, I did a total of 3 coats of stain, and then after that I did 3 coats of polyurethane varnish, which gives it a nice gloss finish. The finish has been dry for about 3 days, and now the last step is to put the wire on the back for hanging it on the wall. Okay, I probably could add the wire first and then slip in the canvas, but it'll just be a little easier to put the canvas in first. Adding the wire is really easy. You just drill a couple pilot holes and then you screw in these little rings about 1/3 of the way down the frame. Then you twist the wire around each ring and tie it off.
You just want to make sure the wire isn't so long that you see it above the frame when it's hanging on the wall. Okay, now I'm ready to hang it. I had two requirements for where I put this painting. One is that there needs to be room to stand off to the left to look at it from the correct angle. The second is that there can't be a window or a lamp or anything on the right side of the painting. Otherwise you would get a lot of glare when you're looking at it from that shallow angle. And that's about it. Here's how it looks from the front, and here's how it looks from the side. This was a lot of fun for me to make, and I'm very happy with how it came out. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments.